In a recent video, I did a review on the Hygger automatic water change system. And I really thought it was a pretty good, option for people out there. But I want to do basically a comparison video between the Hygger and the Python water change systems. The Python is probably the most popular option out there on the market today, but it definitely has some advantages and disadvantages from the Hygger. We're going to go ahead and compare the Python and Hygger in 4 areas. We're going to compare the speed in which you can do water changes. We're going to look at the efficiency, or basically how much water we're wasting between the two systems. We're also going to look at the quality of the materials, which one really has the better quality. And lastly, we're going to compare the cost. The first thing we're going to do is look at how quickly can you fill an aquarium with each one of these systems. A lot of people like to use pumps to remove water from their aquarium, or even siphons, just so that they don't waste water. And we'll get into that later, because these do tend to waste a little bit of water when removing water. But in case you're a person who's like, no, I use pumps, I use other methods to get the water out of my tank, let's just go ahead and first look at how quickly can we get water into our tanks. So first, I took a look at the Hygger water system. And you are watching me fill these up at a much faster rate than what it actually took in person. I'll go through the times in just a minute, but I didn't want you guys to have to watch how long it actually took to fill these tanks. Once I finished with the Hygger, I switched over to the Python water system. Again, this is filmed at a much higher speed than it actually took. To fill this. They don't go this fast in filling 10-gallon tanks, but you get an idea. You can see I did do the testing to see which one went faster. So what I did is I went back and I looked at the video, when it started, when it ended with the fill, and I did some crazy math calculations, and what I found was that the Hygger was exactly 3 minutes and 16 seconds to fill my 10-gallon tank. Then I went and looked at my Python and did the crazy math calculations again, and amazingly, I came up with 3 minutes and 16 seconds to fill my 10-gallon with the Python. That's right, they were both the exact same time. Now I have city water, and so my water pressure is pretty high, and definitely as much water as I could push through that, either one of these systems worked. It was able to take all that water in and no problem, and really I was pretty surprised by this. I thought there was going to be a difference, but it did not show a difference. So as far as the speed, these guys are equal. So for our first test, they both earned a check mark. The second thing I want to look at is the efficiency of how much water are we wasting when we use this system to take water out of our aquarium. Now, a lot of times when you have an aquarium that is sitting up higher than your sink level, you don't really have to worry about wasting a lot of water, because it's going to work like a siphon and you can actually shut your water off. But if you have aquariums that are close to the ground, then you may have to actually keep your water running to get the water out of those aquariums. So let's take a look at, with our water running, how much water that we're going to be pulling from our sink in comparison to how much we're getting out of our aquariums. How I set this test up was to put a 5-gallon tank into my sink and start draining the water from the aquarium. That way I got all the water from the aquarium and the water that I was pulling through my sink at one time, and then I marked off how far down it had drained the 10-gallon tank. So first I did the Hygger, and then I switched over to the Python water system. And again, I did the same thing, pulling the water out of the tank and then comparing, once it filled up, how much water was actually left in the aquarium. And as you can see, the Python pulled almost twice as much water as the Hygger. So for the efficiency test, the Python is definitely going to use less water. The third thing we're going to look at is at the quality of these systems, each individually. There are some things I like about both of them, but one of them I think definitely has some higher quality. So let's go ahead and take a look at those. First, we're going to look at the main connectors to your faucets. And this is what's going to basically turn on your siphon or to change it over to fill your tanks. And so first we have the Python, which just twists down at the bottom to open that drain, or to close it, you just twist it back up and it's going to go ahead and fill your tank. Really, I do like the overall construction of this. It's pretty solid, one piece for the most part.
really think it's pretty good. Now, especially if we compare that to the Hygger, which comes into two different pieces, and the bottom piece there is going to be how you turn on your drain, or to turn it the other way and you're going to open it up for the fill. Now, if we look at the connectors for our faucets, first we have the Hygger, which has two different pieces, and you can adjust it for different drain systems, and whichever system works is how you're going to use that with that faucet. With the Python, it comes with this brass piece, and really the brass piece is definitely a nicer quality than that plastic, and it actually has two different threadings, one on the outside and one on the inside, and it comes with another bushing there to be able to seal it, and works great in most faucets. Next, we're going to look at the other end of the system, and the Python is a solid one-piece construction. Basically, you can't pull anything apart. But if we look at the Hygger, this tube actually does come off, which I don't necessarily love, but I will say the Hygger is much longer, which for some tanks might be great. Other tanks, you probably don't want it as long. One thing I really do like about the Hygger, though, is this section right here where it has a little bit of a drain there that stops small fish or plants going in. Again, here at the end, this lever just is not as nice as the Python, and so overall I definitely like the lever more on the Python than the Hygger. Next, if we're looking at the tubes here, the hoses, the Python hose is definitely thicker than the Hygger. It also is a lot more pliable, and just the Hygger feels a lot cheaper as far as the hose. I don't think it's going to last as long, and so overall quality of the product, I definitely think, again, Python is going to get the win here.
So the last thing we're going to consider when we're comparing these two is the cost. And so as you can see, there definitely is a clear advantage to one of these systems over the other. But at the end of the day, cost may be a major factor for you. And if that's the case, then here's the cost as of today, right now in May of 2022.
The 50-foot Hygger costs $42.99, and the 50-foot Python cost $83.55. So for our last comparison, clearly the Hygger is the winner. And ultimately, guys, you can pick which one you want, what makes the most sense for you. There are pros and cons.
If you guys found this video helpful, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, and come back and watch some more videos. If you want to watch the full review of the Hygger automatic water change system, you can check that over here.